said, half of directing or more than half of directing is just casting, just making the right choice. My dream project would be to write for South Park. Even if everyone in the rest of the room understands it, I will raise my hand and be that dumbass. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's more important that I understand.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the KDigitals podcast, where we dive into artists, their origin, and their process. Joining me today is Jared Bauer. How are you doing today, Jared?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Of course, man. I appreciate you taking the time to help coordinate everything with you being in Finland and all. So let's just dive right into it, man. I know a lot of people know you from Wisecrack, and that was a big part of your life, but you moved on. Now you're doing a lot of other things. So I really want to spend the time to talk about, we could touch on Wisecrack, but I really want to dive into you as like the individual. So the way
Wisecrack is very much my life's work, pretty much up until this point. So it would be weird to ignore it, but I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve Jobs had Apple, and now I'm talking to Steve Jobs when he's at Next, right? There's a different part of the timeline where, and so, the way I kick off every podcast, Jared, is to really ask artists to define themselves, right? Like I'm a photographer. Some people are a director. Someone's a video editor. You've done a lot of different things, from being a video editor to being a personality to being, running a company. How do you define yourself in the most simplest way possible?
Well, I think the common wisdom is that if you're in a job interview, you better know how to define yourself very specifically. But outside of job interviews, I find it very difficult to kind of define myself, because I think I really just kind of find out what I'm good at just by trying things. So, when I moved to Hollywood, I would very much have liked to label myself as a writer director. But the truth is I don't really have I don't have the patience to be a Hollywood screenwriter in the current climate. And directing is, it's something I did do in Wisecrack. It was my primary job, but, obviously it's very different from cinematic directing or even commercial directing to an extent. So I don't know. I guess I just label myself a creative. My background is that I went to film school, undergrad, and then I moved to Los Angeles, where I started making YouTube videos, and I was mostly the writer director of YouTube videos at first, and then I became more of a personality, and then I eventually kind of sank into a role of kind of editor in chief. Most of my time was spent editing scripts for people that we would hire, initially wrote, and now I'm actually working in gaming. So I think really it's just overall creative is kind of how I see myself. However, there are certain things I'm horrible at. Like I'm horrible at drawing or any painting, anything arts and crafts related. I'm horrible at. I think I really just am more of like an ideas guy. Anything ideas or writing is really where my skills are at. But when it comes to anything physical, and I think I'm actually pretty poor at photography as well. As a matter of fact, as soon as Wisecrack became big enough to where I could pay someone else to hold the camera, I never missed it.
Oh, you're like, good riddance.
Yeah, I was like, good riddance. I try to keep up with what's the newest camera that's coming out. And then as soon as I had another identity, or at least I had some success in some other realm, I was like, oh, I don't need to, I actually don't care about that. Just tell someone else to make it look good. And that's better for me.
So that's a good kind of segue. So one question I want to ask you is, right, like as a creative, and I kind of suffer from this. I'm trying to learn to get over it. It's learning to delegate responsibility of certain tasks or projects to folks, and like trusting they could come through. At what point do you learn? Like I think you mentioned in a past video, like you wrote the first 12 episodes of 8-Bit Philosophy, and then you gave that to a different writer. When do you learn to let go and get someone else on the team?
It's never, in that situation, it was a necessity. It was just too much work for one person at that point, but it's never a quick process. It's never just one day someone has the entirety of responsibility. There's an onboarding process. There's a process of trial and error. And it's really, you got to make sure that you're establishing a tone with your collaborator or your employee or whatever, to make sure that, you know, it's okay if they make mistakes, and just to know that if you want things a certain way, that your criticisms are coming from a good place. And but yeah, in general, it's always very hard. It's not something like, for example, you know, like Dan Harmon is a very successful TV showrunner. You know, he does his thing. He's not focusing on scaling Dan Harmon right now because he knows it's only him. You know, Matt and Trey Parker, who are like my idols, or Matt Stone and Trey Parker, who are like my idols, you know, they'll never, you know, give away South Park entirely. It's their baby. So, you know, you got to balance it. I mean, if your goal is to create a company, then scaling is unfortunately going to be a necessity. So you're going to really have to build those teams and delegate work. But if you're an artist, like you yourself, a photographer, you know, I would have no shame in just saying that, you know, I want to be a control freak over my own work, because I think oftentimes that's where you're going to get the best results.
For sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The kind of the pros and cons, right? Usually I think a lot of people, it's like go all pros and like there's no cons to it, but it's also like the scaling part you mentioned. When you have to scale, that's a whole different problem solving bit of fun, you know?
Yeah. And you know, do you know are you a film buff at all?
No, not as much as I probably should be. I I just started watching Quentin Tarantino movies, like with the intention of watching them, and it's like, oh, what a good guy. I'm kind of late to this.
Oh yeah, well, no problem. There's a director who's pretty famous named Paul Thomas Anderson, and he has a quote. And during interviews, he's quite well known for being almost too humble. But he basically said, you know, half of directing, or more than half of directing, is just casting. You know, just making the right choice. And I would say the same thing with delegating work. Delegating work is it's over half just picking the right person. And for that particular instance in 8-Bit Philosophy that you were talking about, Matt Reichley, who was the guy who pretty much owned 8-Bit Philosophy for a year or two, he was just the right guy. And it was actually not difficult at all to hand over the project to him.
So what are you the right guy for? If someone wanted to hand you something where you're like, oh yeah, that's right up my alley, give that to me.
Well, I mean, my dream project would be to write for South Park and just to be in Trey's idea room. I actually think I'd be very good at it. This is going to seem very conceited, but I also think I would be very good at rebooting the Matrix, which I know is about to happen at the end of the year. Okay. But you know, I hope it's good. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. So yeah, I think those are the two things I was kind of born to do, and I know those are like, you know, huge fantasy crapshoots. But yeah, I think that I have a really good eye for directing. Make sure that things are visually communicated. I think that's like my best skill as a director. And even at my work in gaming right now, it's very much making sure that things are communicated very obviously, that there's like visual cause and effect that, you know, ties together every choice that a player makes. So I'd say, yeah, that's probably where my sweet spot is.
Yeah, for sure. Can I ask you about the gaming thing? Are you allowed to share anything about that, or is that more like Jared?
I'll share it. I'll share everything except the name of the company, only because I'm just afraid of griefers. Like, I just don't want somebody who hates me to contact HR and, you know, like cancel me in a second, even though that happens less in Finland. I'm just trying to keep it separate. In terms of the actual work, I'm more than happy to talk about it.
For sure. And I appreciate the rails on that. That's totally fair. Yeah. So how did you go from LA content creation YouTube to Finland to, cause I know like the whole Euro scene, like especially in mobile gaming, it's like those guys and gals know what they're doing out there and really building something. How did you enter one scene to that scene?
Well, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy. As a matter of fact, going being a YouTube content creator, even one who, wrote a book and sold a company, like nobody cares. I was like looking for a job for 4 months until I found this job.
Okay.
And I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't think it was going to be this hard. And I think it's kind of a rare thing for people to leave YouTube behind. And so people they're not used to hearing like, oh yeah, my last career was in YouTube. And plus, like most people, when they hear that, most people, when they hear that, don't take it very seriously, because most people, when they think about YouTube, think of it as just kind of a vlog format or like makeup tutorial, something like that, which is, generally what the most popular stuff on the platform is. So I actually had a very difficult time trying to convince people in various industries to believe in me, because there are no jobs in content creation, in a sense. Like, so there was really no opportunity for me to make any kind of a lateral move from like running content at Wisecrack to running content somewhere else, because no one is hiring for that, because the digital media industry isn't making enough money. So really, it was just, if anyone listening is looking for a job in a new industry, my biggest recommendation is just to find LinkedIn recruiters and just ask for 15 minutes of their time and pitch yourself to them. In this particular instance, I found a video game recruiter, shot to LinkedIn, just asked if I could take 15 minutes of his time. He obliged. I pitched myself to him. And the thing about recruiters is that they make more money if they find a good fit. So, if you really orient yourself as to like, hey, I'm here to do you a favor, I'm here to make you money, they're more likely to present you to their boss, or submit you for a role. And I actually talked to this particular recruiter in January and didn't get the job offer until May. So it was it's a very long it's a very long process. But I'll also say that in preparation for gave me like a test. I read a whole book about gaming, specifically the realm of gaming that I would be entering. And I recommend doing that if you're unemployed and you're given any kind of written test and you have a week to do it. Spend the first 2.5 days just, tearing through some kind of a business book and just highlight all the buzzwords and just put the buzzwords in the test. And I promise it'll look impressive.
Yeah. So you brought like there's not really jobs in content creation. What about social media? Like as a social media like marketing manager, or that like or is that more like a different type of content creation?
So give me an example of a company that might hire that role.
Yeah. Like eBay might just want like a social media person for their Instagram, and they want someone to help shell out content, like 10 pieces a day kind of thing.
Yeah. Those jobs do exist, and I don't want to say that it's not like noble or interesting. It would just have been probably too much of a step down for me to be running a media company to kind of like managing a social media account. Yeah. But yeah, those jobs exist, but I guess my point is like, yeah, well, I guess my point is like eBay in that example, like YouTube is not YouTube, or any video platform for that matter, or any podcasting platform for that matter, is not making so much money that someone like eBay is saying to themselves, maybe we need some video content, because eBay is looking and saying, oh, nobody's making money here, we're not going to bother the investment. So that's kind of what I meant when I said that no one is hiring in digital content. No one's hiring senior roles. No one is investing in new digital media efforts, because even Spotify, with the, over like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that they invested in podcasting, is underperforming.
So being someone that's probably had a closer fingers to the pulse, is that just because there's too many people and like the attention and money is too spread thin? Like what? Like I think like it feels like a bubble. Like so, but why?
It was a bubble. The bubble already burst. But the reason is no, it's okay. The bubble burst in like 2018 when Vice and BuzzFeed underreported their earnings because they're the industry leaders and they had raised the most money. The real reason is because the only people winning in this space, as well as the mobile gaming space, are Google and Facebook. I mean, they're literally just taking all of the money. So for example, because you can't compete with the level of data and the level of efficiency that they can offer advertisers. I mean, Google and Facebook, they are the advertising industry right now. The scope of monopoly is disturbing. So basically, let's say that you're Dove soap and you've got $1 million and then you on the advertising. Now, what I assumed would happen, which I was very wrong about, was that Dove soap would, find brand Wisecrack and find a brand like Vice and find like BuzzFeed and like spend $250,000 here, $250,000 there. That's kind of how it works in television. But what happened instead is basically they just give the whole $1 million to Google and Facebook, and they're able to provide them with data that's so sophisticated that they can say, hey, Dove soap, you can just do less work, give us $1 million, and we'll show your ads to people who are running low on hand soap, because we know how long ago they ordered hand soap from Amazon. We can do the calculation and realize they're probably in the market for it. So you just can't compete. And so all the money just went directly to the platforms, and the budgets and revenue and all that stuff for digital content creators never went up. And that's why pretty much any brand you can think of on YouTube is not doing as well as, there are a lot of burnout stories because of this. One of them is, are you familiar with Freddie Wong?
Yeah.
I don't know personally, but I met a guy who was high up in company after he raised money. Okay. Apparently his burnout was pretty bad because he, like me, wanted to jump a company, and, raise money for it and stuff like that. And because of the monopolization of the market, that never really became a reality for him. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's the short reason is that, the platforms just own the marketing industry, mm-hmm. So, or the advertising industry.
Yeah. So like on YouTube, when people do ads, like obviously there's like the skippable, not skippable ads that play before video and kind of just jump in and out. When someone does a ad in the video, like, hey, so say a sponsor of Squarespace and whatever, is that like stepping on Google's toes when someone does that, or is that like something that's acceptable because it's not going directly to them?
Well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, they're being like merciful in allowing us to do this. I mean, there have been some regulations that have been enforced over the years, but nothing too serious. For example, God, what was it? I think, I don't really remember exactly, but it was something like at some point between the years of like 2014 and 2016, they made it so that you couldn't add a clickable to any of the advertisers. You actually have to like type in dovesoap.com/wisecrack or whatever. But I'm not entirely sure about that, but does it step on their toes? The truth of the matter is, I complain about YouTube, but there are social media or tech companies out there that are much less ethical. At least YouTube is giving us something. And when YouTube allows us to take 100% of an ad from, like you said, Squarespace, they are more or less doing that out of the goodness of their heart because they don't have to. But like, for example, what Bumble is, the dating app?
Yeah.
So for example, Bumble has ads in between pictures of women or pictures of men, whatever you're looking for, and they take all of the money. And now I know that, a picture of me, a picture of you doesn't seem like it's content creation, but it's virtually the product that people are looking for go on these apps. And basically we are giving them free raw materials. We're basically saying, hey, here's the product that you can still add to, and you don't have to give us any of it. So when it comes to like tech companies really screwing us, YouTube has a lot of problems, but there are worse actors out there.
Yeah. OfferUp. So OfferUp's like Craigslist, right? I don't know if you ever used OfferUp. It's like an Instagram feed where you could put like, oh, I want to sell my couch, I want to sell my light, my camera, right? And you post it up, and then you go through this feed. But it's as soon as you click on any product, and they're like shameless about it. Like it's not even machine learning. Like you click, oh, I want to look at these like Pokemon cards. Boom. All of a sudden, once you click out of that, all your feed is all your ads, especially are Pokemon cards, and they're bigger and everything.
Right.
I'm like, this is not money for the regular folks. This is for eBay and Adorama and all these bigger publishers or companies that are paying for the ad space. Like there's literally just an ad platform for, okay, I see what you guys are doing here. It's not Craigslist, they really,
And then
they're subtle about it.
And then you as a photographer, it's the same thing. Like if you put all of your photographs on Instagram, well, guess what? If I'm scrolling through your ads or I'm scrolling through your photos, it's going to be, Chris's photo, ad, Chris's photo, and you're not seeing any of that money.
Yeah. And I heard they're supposed to start paying people for that. I'm not sure how that's going to work, and I'm not like too close to what's happening, but I'm like, yeah, we are like the employees in a way when you think about it at the end of the day, but it's a trade-off of a free platform too, right? You can make your own platform, but then you have to deal with all of that.
Yeah, I disagree that it's a trade-off. These people are making so much money, it's obscene. And honestly, most of the careers, this is a little bit controversial for me to say, but I do believe it. Like probably like 60% of the careers at any of these tech companies are just glorified corporate tax write-offs, in that the jobs are not necessary, but they're literally just there to look diverse. So it distracts from the fact that the business model is horrifying. And they basically just pretend to be busy all the time, but they don't have any power. I mean, when I was at Wisecrack, we had a Google rep. We knew the head of the education department. We would have calls with these people and they had no power. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't, if a video of ours was flagged in bad faith, they had no power. If we were confused about why the algorithm was treating us a certain way, they weren't even allowed to mention the algorithm. Basically all of these tech companies have like this cast, like on the top, there are these high data priests that are basically like a new aristocracy sense. And then there's just like all of these employees that don't really do anything. And so, to say that if you started paying people for their content, then the platform wouldn't be free, I disagree with that. They would be making less money, but they don't need to be making an obscene amount of money, and they don't need to be, hiring unnecessary jobs to make their tax rate lower.
Interesting. I appreciate that. That's cool, man. So I know that I listened to the reason why you left, but it's kind of like you have a lot of industry knowledge, right? And how this all works. Is any of that helping you now in your new job? Like, are you able to take that and like get things done a little bit better because of how much you know?
I'm certainly trying. I've only been at the job for 2 weeks, and I'm trying to kind of like climb the corporate ladder to get somebody to listen to me, because I do think that there are a lot of similarities between the digital media industry and the mobile gaming industry, which is the area of the industry I'm in that they are both media companies that are based on, engaging fans or consumers, that is mediated by huge platforms that ultimately own your audience. And so I think that I have like a unique, the way I think of it is, are you into video games perhaps?
A little bit. I dip in and out. That's like a whole nother conversation.
Okay. Did you play by chance Red Dead Redemption 2?
I have not played Red Dead Redemption yet. I know. I watch all the videos on all the secret top 10 scary ports of the whole video. Like I watch all those videos on Red Dead Redemption, but I haven't picked it up.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have this like Red Dead 2 relevant metaphor for what's happening to the industry that just won't make sense. But anyway, I mean, I'm trying to tell people that I think what happened to the digital media industry is actually happening already through the digital media industry. And I'm really trying to ring the bell and say, hey, maybe if you watch Game of Thrones, are you familiar with Game
I've
of
watched
Thrones?
Game of Thrones, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the White Walkers are coming, is what I'm trying to tell people. And I'm trying to get people to listen. And we'll see how that goes. I've only been here for 2 weeks, and half of my time is just, registering with the Finnish bureaucracy and looking for a permanent apartment because I'm in like temporary housing right now. So it's been like, yeah, so I'm still figuring things out.
For sure. That's cool, man. I appreciate this is good. I'm glad you're here. This has been a nice, cool brain pick. Well, let me hard left a bit just to change it up. I want to redeem myself on the video game conversation. I feel like you're giving me references like, oh, I don't know.
No, it's okay. It's just it's just how I speak. It's I only understand anything through the lens of entertainment.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Do you consider Dark Souls 2 a black sheep of the series, or do you think it's good on its own? It's actually
a good game? Now we're talking. This is a good question. So actually, Dark Souls 2 was the first one I ever played, and
okay.
I think, and so actually I have the fondest memory of it just because it was my first Dark Souls experience. Mm-hmm. So I think in a way I'm biased because I fell in love with Dark Souls through Dark Souls 2, and I haven't replayed it since then. I've played 1, I've played Bloodborne, I've played Sekiro, and the only one I haven't beaten is Dark Souls 3. So I haven't revisited Dark Souls 2, and I definitely have heard some of the criticisms and definitely can understand them. But in my personal experience, it's got a pretty fond place in my heart.
Yeah, that was where the nostalgia started. And it's going to be like, no matter what you do, this is going to be good then. For sure, man.
Yeah.
So if you're into video games like that much, right, and doing all that, have you built Wisecrack as a company like that? Would you ever want to create your own video game company? Those are probably two different things, but
sure. Yeah, but I definitely would want to learn, and that's what I'm doing here in Finland. I'm learning. They say either earn or learn. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever heard that saying. I'm definitely learning. Like I'm not an executive. Like I'm not taking this job to generate wealth. I don't even think I'm making money here. I'm just like living here. Because people make much less money here because it's weird. I mean, that we could have a whole other conversation about cultural differences between the US and Finland, but yeah, I mean, there's so much for me to learn. And obviously, if I were to do Wisecrack again, there's certain knowledge. Well, Wisecrack's a weird thing because like digital media is so new when we started that I don't even really know if there was a lot for me to learn because all the learning was being done at the time. But at least for this next venture, first of all, I just don't want to raise money again because that's like a crazy amount of stress for, at least a couple of years. So, but yeah, I mean, if I figure out the ins and outs of the industry and feel like I have a play to make, then yeah, I mean, that would be really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so right now you're in the kind of not meditating, but you went to the temple and you're really just breathing and trying to.
Yeah, I'm basically in like years long recovery.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it for sure too. I listened to your video and I used to work in a startup too. And so I get it, right? You probably had a lot more going on, but the same sense of like, oh, so this is like to breathe again. Breathing is nice. I like breathing,
Yeah. And I know that startup life doesn't only affect, the owners of the company. So like, I would not presume that my life was more stressful than yours because startup also just like startup culture can be very authoritarian in that, the company will really kind of give this like, hey, we're a family type thing, which really just ultimately puts like an unfair amount of pressure on you to work harder. And I'm very critical against that.
Well, who was it? It wasn't Dropbox, but I want to say Dropbox. There's a point where someone, one of the owners, the CEOs, put out like a letter saying like, "Hey, everyone, we are not a family. We are here to make money, and this is our jobs. Everyone get that straight. I'm done with this like Silicon Valley culture of like everyone's a family. Like, no, we're not. you are an employee. Like it was the whole thing, but that's a different streak to
Yeah,
run down for sure.
I very much appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah. So you're doing the video game thing, right? You have that, but you're also doing this YouTube channel, like your own Jared channel. Is it just for
Yeah,
fun? Is it a party that's like you can't let go of YouTube, which is not a bad thing, right? Or is it more like you have
yeah,
a way just to communicate? Like, what is YouTube to you now at this point?
yeah. I feel bad because I haven't uploaded it in a while, and a lot of that I think has to do with a little bit of anxiety of like, oh shit, like what is this that I'm about
Yeah.
to do?
Yeah.
Also just because like I just I've been quite busy with the move and the
Yeah, you
new
have a
job,
life.
but yeah, yeah. I mean, well, the truth is it has to be fun. But the second it stops being fun, I'm going to stop doing it. So, for example, like the one video, I mean, there are a couple of video ideas in my mind that I know I'm going to make. It's just a matter of like, when am I going to have the time to do it? But one video that I do have scheduled, I'm going to do is, you know what a tier list is? You know, like some people make like a tier list video of like, here, you know, the top 25 Super Smash Brothers characters, and it's like all the S tier characters and then the A tier characters. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's why I was mentioning about the Red
So,
Dead thing. Yeah.
yeah, so Ryan and I are gonna do like a top 50 tier list of best movie directors, and just like is something like I just love that guy and I love talking movies with him, and we're just gonna have fun doing it. You know, I hope that people enjoy it, but ultimately, like if this is a thing that stresses me of like, oh my god, I need to finish this book by next week so I can get started on that South Park video that I promised the fans, and like, you know, I'm just gonna probably abandon the thing because that's kind of not where I need to be mentally.
Yeah. Do you feel like, so like one thing like I like joked about, he was like, when I was doing a startup life, right? Like that was my life, right? And the whole point was to get away from that. And then when I got away from it, now this whole photography and podcasting, I'm kind of like rebuilding that lifestyle again, but with just somewhere else. Do you feel like that?
Well, yeah, because
Are you gonna go down that route, you think, with YouTube? Are you trying not to?
I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I gotta find out what the content is. If it's something that I feel like I'm enjoying, and it's something, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell. You know, I don't have this grand plan in my head, right? You know, one thing is that I'm somebody who likes learning, and in a sense, I don't think I really have anything left to learn about YouTube. I mean, of course, there will be like changes made, and there will be like, you know, new success stories and algorithm changes and everything like that. But I'm really enjoying learning about mobile gaming because it's just something I don't know anything about. So that's just naturally going to take my attention because I just feel like I can get better at it. In a way, I might get better at YouTube to some extent, in that like maybe my genuine personality, just speaking about things that I find interesting, might resonate on the platform, but I don't think I'll actually gain any more skills that I didn't already have at Wisecrack. So I'm not looking to like build up a YouTube channel real quick and like monetize it as fast as possible so I can, you know, live the influencer lifestyle. I'm not looking to do that. I mean, you know, if anyone wants to give me money, I'm never going to turn it down, but like I'm not. But right now, like people have asked me about Patreons and stuff, and I said I'm not taking anyone's money until I figure out what kind of content I can even promise with your money, you know. So so, you know, it's not a priority for me. It's really just since I think I realized that, you know, I was born past the prime of cinema and there's nothing I can do about that. But I might have been born into the prime of YouTube, and I've already like done something there, and I've already made, you know, a quote unquote a mark in YouTube history. So why just, you know, cry over spilt milk about the death of cinema? Why not just, you know, why abandon the thing that you know, I'll probably be remembered for, you know, if anyone's remembered, because there's so many people on YouTube, you know. So so yeah, like instead of thinking one day I could be good enough to emulate Kubrick, now I'm just thinking like, well, you know, we're all just paving our own way on YouTube, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And now that you're kind of in Finland, and I just because of like this moment, but like I mentioned, like you had the Steve Jobs, Apple like first Apple, and then now you're next, like blank slate, right? There's so many ways you could be running now. So it's like, let's figure this out. How do
Yeah.
we do
Yeah.
this? Yeah. So that's cool, man. Well, hey Jared, I
Yeah.
know we're nearing time, so I wanted to ask one last question. So generally when I wrap up the podcast, I always want to ask guests, like, okay, if you're a photographer, what's some advice you give to a photographer? You know, if you're a writer, what's some advice you give to a writer? But in this case, again, like there's a lot going on for you, right? I'm gonna say, like, I guess in the broadest sense, is someone that wants to be, a better learner, right? I feel like that's what you kind of are. What's advice you could give to someone just in that sense? Like if they want to grow as a person, they have to be able to learn, but how would you help guide them if you had to give like one piece of gold?
Yeah. So I would say be shameless about your ignorance. I ask the dumbest questions possible. If I don't understand something, even if everyone in the rest of the room understands it, I will raise my hand and be that dumbass. I don't care. At the end of the day, it's more important that I understand. I would also say don't look down on resources that are simple, that are meant to help you. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're interested in Nietzsche, but you open up the Spock Zarathustra and it's like, too hard or just like isn't keeping your attention, you shouldn't have any shame in like going to the store and getting one of those, like, Nietzsche in comics kind of thing. That's basically just like a dumbed down version. Although I don't think dumbed down is the right word, but I think you know what I'm going for.
Yeah, I have a. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So just like ask questions, have faith in primers, and yeah, I think those two are pretty good rules.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, hey man, I appreciate taking the time to chat with me today. Where can people follow you, follow your journey? What are the best places for them to do that?
Oh, sure. So my Instagram is @father-of-Woody. Woody's my dog. And that'll be a lot of place where I put up some like just travel content, pictures of Finland and stuff like that. And if you want to follow my YouTube channel, which is yet to really establish an identity, it's just my name, Jared Bauer, Bauer.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much, Jared. For everyone listening, thanks for giving it a listen. Go ahead and like, follow, subscribe wherever you're listening to this at. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll see you all later. Bye, everyone.